Hi, my name's Neil Jackson. I played Edmund Slate in Quantum of Solace, and you're listening to Really 007 podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Really 007 podcast. I'm Tom Pickup, and with me tonight is John Kell, and we're here for another interview from the second Daniel Craig James Bond film, Quantum of Solace. Now we've got Neil Jackson is here with us, and he played the henchman Edmund Slate, not just Mr. Slate, in what must be, we think, is one of the most brutal fights in the whole series. So yes, we're going to be chatting about that with him. We're looking forward to that. If you're fairly new to joining us on the channel, on the podcast, you can watch our interviews, other interviews as well, on the YouTube channel. You can also listen to them on iTunes, Spotify, and various other outlets. So please subscribe, and if you can leave a good review, that would help. That'd be very kind. We're also on social media, so we're on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And yes, it's been good to chat to fans all over the world, including America, where Neil joins us from tonight. But it's midday, is it there?
Yeah, I'm actually in Canada. I'm in Vancouver. So yeah,
Lovely.
Lovely.
North
Whoa.
America.
Yeah. Isn't it Vancouver rated the most desirable place in the world to live?
It's definitely up there as one of the top 3 or 5, I think. It's one of those things that me and my wife, we pinch ourselves. Like yesterday, we had a lovely day here. The sun was out, so 5-minute drive away, we're at the beach with our dogs, overlooking the water with the mountains in the background, all snow crested. It's just like, this is where we get to live. This is pretty incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So how long have you been living there? Is that partly because
I've been here. Yeah, I moved here in 2019. So I was shooting a film here in, what would it have been, 2017, I suppose. It was Robert Zemeckis' film called Welcome to Marwin.
Oh yeah,
And
great film.
Whatever sentence you decide to give these so-called people, I want them to know they can't hurt me anymore. They can't hurt me anymore. Because they're gone. They're gone for good. But I'm still here.
I met my now wife here. She's Scottish. So we went on a date, and both realized that we had been kind of censoring ourselves unwittingly, because she'd been in North America for about a decade at that point, and I'd been living in LA up to that point about 15 years. And all of the sort of British tribute. I mean, she made a Jimmy Savile joke, was what it was, and it made me laugh. And I was like, I haven't heard a Jimmy Savile joke in a very, very long while, like a proper dark British humor Jimmy Savile. And so I was like, oh my God, this is great. And we just hit it off. We did 2 years long distance, where I lived in not that long distance, LA to Vancouver, same time zone, about a 3-hour flight. And then I moved here about 8 weeks before the pandemic hit. We joked that I was patient zero, because I was shooting a show called Absentia in Bulgaria. And the last week of being in Bulgaria, I got the worst cold/flu I've ever had.
Oh, no.
And then flew back with it, arrived here in Vancouver, and was laid up in bed for 2 weeks. Turned out that was COVID.
Right.
So we joked that I was patient zero. I brought it over here.
Already loving this dark sense of humour, Neil.
Yeah.
Enough time's gone by for Savile jokes, hasn't it? And COVID jokes.
Yeah, you can throw out a little something. Yeah, and COVID jokes. Yeah.
Vancouver, oh, what a beautiful place. They filmed the X-Files there, didn't they? I know.
Yeah, they filmed the X-Files. It's actually, do you remember the Jean-Claude Van Damme film Time Cop?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, good. We
Love
love
it.
So there's at the beginning there's a mall where he kicks a guy in the face, and he says, "Read it," and it's just a cookies.
Read it. Wolverine,
Between the lines.
I should get the fuck out of here.
Good.
That's 2-minute walk from my house. Every time I go in there, I have a compulsion to drop down into box splits and grow a mullet.
Oh, Neil. Oh, another lad, Rob, on the podcast especially, he's obsessed with JCVD. So I'm sure he'll
as he
enjoy
should
that.
be. He's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Have you met the man?
No, I've never got to meet him, unfortunately. Hopefully one day I get to meet him. It's just, yeah, I was 12, 13 when
Yeah.
Kickboxer came out and those movies, and just kind of grew up on those movies. JCVD, that film, when he made that one. Have you seen actual JCVD, the
Yeah,
film?
yeah, the sort of meta, isn't
Where
it? Yeah,
yeah, very meta. Where he's talking to camera, and it's just and it's all about his life, but kind of fictional, but not really. And I love the fact that he started sending himself up.
yeah,
Jean-Claude Van Johnson, JC. Yeah, did you see
yeah,
that? There was a short-lived Amazon series where he was playing a spy version of himself. It's just it's great.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, you've got that in common in terms of your acting and your action. Uh, so
Yeah. It
yeah,
was a
go
funny
for it.
little kind of sequence for me. I mean, I think you were about to say how did I get into acting, but
Yeah,
I used to act as a kid in school, and I was a bit of a tearaway kid now, realizing that I've got undiagnosed ADHD and a whole host of other things that are probably sitting in there, that I just was restless in school, and
yeah,
so I ended up being the class clown, and I got kicked out of my French class, and I got kicked out of my German class, and then the head teacher at the school, who was wonderful, Mr. Motion, he said the only classes at the same time that you can do is drama class. I was like, great, I'll go and do drama. And I went into drama, and it was just a DOS class. And I mean that in the kindest sense of
yeah,
the word. So,
mm.
like every other class, you're sitting and you're watching and you're trying to learn something. This was about playing and expression, and there was theory that was in there. But I was like, this is great. I'll do this over German every single day.
yeah.
And then I started getting put into school plays, and that was fun. And never really took it seriously. And then Nigel Williams, who was the head of the drama department, who ended up becoming the head of National Youth Theatre, and he actually moved to LA, and we became friends in LA because he was teaching in a school in LA drama, and he's since just retired. We were doing a production of Hard Times, of Charles Dickens's Hard Times,
Wow.
and I hadn't learned my lines, hadn't done anything for it. It was still mucking around, and I remember going into one of the rehearsals, and it came to this big monologue that my character had, and I hadn't learned it. And he just grabbed the script, put a big red pen through it, and he cut every part that I was in. He said, "You're not going to have any lines in this because you haven't learned it." And I was so shamed that I went home and stayed up all night and worked on my lines. And when I came back to the rehearsal the next day, I wanted to prove that I could do it. And that was the
Wow.
beginning of this little bug for me of acting. And so I went to careers advice. Sorry, it's a long story. I went to
Great.
Brilliant.
careers advice
Brilliant.
at 17, as we had to do in school. And I said, I'd love to be an actor. And she literally laughed at me. And she said, let's figure out a proper job. And I was always in sports. I was captain of the rugby team. I was doing
Oh,
martial arts at the time. And so we're like, great, let's go to university. And I don't know, it was, we said, let's become a Royal Marine. So for some reason, we landed on Royal Marine being the job that I was going to do. So I went
nice
to
and easy.
Lympston to yeah, I know, right? Well, it was just like sports was a natural thing. So just send him out and get him running in the mud, I think was her theory. And so I went to the potential officers course in Lympston, and I failed that course. But they said, we really like you as an applicant. Get a degree. We like our officers to have a degree. Come back when you've got a
Right.
degree. We'll keep you on file, and that'll be your career in the Marines. And so I put on my UCAS form the first 8 universities in the alphabetical order that did sports. It was like Aberdeen, Argyle, Birmingham, Brighton, Cardiff. Cardiff were the first ones to give me an offer. So I went to Cardiff with this whole idea of I'll do a 3-year degree, then I'll be in the Marines, and that'll be my career. And a month, 6 weeks into doing the degree, I was like, what the hell do I want to be a Royal Marine for? I've got no desire to be dragged out of bed at 4 a.m. and do press ups in the mud. And so I kind of just drifted for a little bit. I did 3 years of the degree. I was boxing at the time, and I'd won an amateur British
Yeah.
title. They gave me a scholarship to stay on and do a master's degree in sports science. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what else I'm going to do, so I'll stay on. And it was actually a girlfriend of mine at the time who was talking to me, and I'd lost my sense of humor. Like I was working in some pretty rough clubs in Cardiff as a doorman. I was boxing 5 days a week, competing every 3 weeks, and so everything was put through the prism of this very roughy tufty fella, and I just wasn't happy. And she said, "What makes you happy?" And I was like, "The last time I was truly happy was when I was acting in school plays."
Oh,
And so I didn't know how. I just done an undergraduate degree, and I was halfway through a master's degree and had no money. And I was like, I don't even know how to begin to get into acting schools. And then the Welsh College of Music and Drama had an open audition, and you had to go along and do a monologue and a song. And if you got in, then they would give you scholarships. And I went along. I was like, great, this is going to be my in to suddenly become an actor. And there was about 4 people in the panel. And I started my monologue, and I didn't get halfway through the monologue when the guy who was running it put his hand up and said, I'll stop you there. You've clearly had no training, and I don't think this is a career for you. Thanks so much for coming in, but it's a no from us. And being a fighter, I was like, okay, well, I'll show you. And I wrote a musical, of all things, and came third in a national competition, and a producer in London heard about it, talked to him, and he said, why did you write it? And I said, to become an actor. And he used to be a teacher at RADA and ran his own course, and he said, I'll give you a scholarship to my course if you come and write for my company. And so for 2 years I moved to London, finished my master's degree in half the time, got that done, moved to London, and enrolled on his course and wrote for his company for the 2 years that I was doing it. And it was the best education I could get, both as an actor and as somebody entering into the industry, because they were producing plays, and I got to be part of that whole back office process. And that was now 25 years ago.
Love how you casually slipped in musicals as well. When you,
I know, it was
yet another interest.
Well, it was, well, I've always kind of played around. Now I realize I just love being creative. I've always played around in loads of different creative modalities, and I used to sing in school bands and play guitar a bit, and I acted, and I always liked doing art and loved writing, and anything that was a creative expression I absolutely loved. And it's always interesting, especially when I went to Hollywood. When I moved there the first time, they want to pigeonhole you as you're this thing, and I didn't really feel like I was an actor. I didn't feel like I was, any pigeonholable thing. I just like doing the things that I like doing, and I think I've been very lucky that I've had a pretty eclectic career as a result of it. That there's nothing that can clearly define what I've done as an actor. They've all been fairly different roles and odd, and a whole hodgepodge of stuff. But most of it comes back to the physicality. It's really interesting. Like the first ever professional job I got was in Heartbeat, playing a boxer. Yeah, me and my wife were singing the tune just yesterday. She suddenly broke out into that heartbeat. Why do you? And I was like, God, the shit that lives in your head rent free. And I haven't thought of that in 25 years, but that's still in there. The lyrics to that. So yeah, the physicality has always been a part of it. And then the very first film I ever did, kind of bringing it back to Bond, because I think that's what we want to talk about, is the very first film that I did was a film called Alexander, which was Oliver Stone, Colin Farrell, which was amazing.
We'll pay them well and take but not as mercenaries for future services.
Now you sound like Philip.
I wondered their eyes fled when he had this to come back to. One for every night of the year.
I was out in Morocco, and we were in a boot camp for 3 weeks out in the Moroccan desert, learning how to be an Alexander army. And every day we had individual fight training, and Gary Powell was the stunt coordinator on that. And so I met with Gary Powell, and I just finished a TV show called Dream Team.
Right, John.
And
John, talk to
I
you
mean,
about
we've been speaking for about 10 minutes, and you've gone Alexander, Dream Team. I mean, I'm just having my childhood right there. I've got to be careful because my wife's in the next room, but Linda Block was my she was my woman when I was younger. Yeah,
right. Yeah, she's your freebie, is she?
No comment.
Okay, all right, good. I didn't actually. I got to work one day with Linda because the season that I did, she'd left. Right. And then I did my season, and then she came back the season afterwards. And it was, again, credit to, I'm blanking on the woman who created Dream Team's name. But anyway, credit to her. They didn't know what to do with my character, because my character was this guy who won the lottery and bought the club, and he was a fan who bought the club. And he was initially a bit of an idiot.
Time to make a good impression.
Come here.
I can do this, can't I?
No one loves this club more than you, Phil. I should know.
I love you, Jackie Wallace.
They very thankfully, they said, we don't buy you as an idiot. We see you as somebody who's passionate, but we're not buying you as an idiot. So they started changing the character as somebody who actually had real desires to turn it into a good club. And it was getting towards the end of the first season. And she called me in. Her name's on the tip of my tongue. And she called me into the office and she said, we're looking at storylines for the next season. I said, okay. And she said, we cannot think of where to go with your character. do you have any ideas of what to do? And we brainstormed and sat there about ideas of where to take this character. And at the end of the meetings, we went, I think it's better if it just ends with this one season. And he got this glorious one season. And they wrote that beautiful thing where he gives a lottery and gives the team away to another fan and kind of moves on from it. All credit to them. They could have kept me there, and because I was under contract for 4 years, I think they could have kept me there for a long while. But they just didn't have the story for it. And I'm so glad that happened, because I finished Dream Team, and I want to say 3 months later auditioned for Alexander, and then silly little story with Alexander. I'd got in a little bit of a street fight and had stitches above my eye and a black eye, and I got a call from my agent saying that Oliver Stone's in town and wants to meet me for Alexander, and I was like, can he postpone? And they said, no, he's in for one day. You meet him now or you don't meet him. And so I went into the audition with stitches in my face and a black eye, and didn't mention it. I was like, if he brings it up, I'll talk about it. But it was to play the general of Alexander's army.
Yeah.
And he hired me on the spot. And afterwards he said, we needed somebody who looked like they were a scrapper. And you walked in with a black eye, and he was like, well, that's my guy. There we go. So everything kind of works out in a weird way.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So Gary Powell was the stunt coordinator on that. And I had my first stunt rehearsal with him, and he said, it's interesting, out of all the people here, he said, I'm a big Dream Team fan. And he said, I loved your character in Dream Team. So we kind of hit it off about Dream Team. And then years later, I did an audition for Bond, not thinking anything of it, for this character of Mr. Slate. And at that point, he didn't have a first name. And and then thought nothing of it. And about 4 weeks later, I got called in for a stunt audition. And I'd never done a stunt audition before. And so you had to go to Pinewood, and you're on the 007 stage.
Wow.
And it was me and 16 other guys who were going up for Edmund Slate. And they had Gary Powell, who's the stunt coordinator there. And so I had an ally and a couple of other people that I knew from working on other films who were stunt guys. And they put us through like Stunt Idol, essentially. There was a panel of judges, and they broke us into groups of 4 and taught us a 3-on-1 fight sequence. And we got 20 minutes to practice it. And then we had to perform it in front of the judges. And then we went back to this other little room, and there's 16 of us of all shapes and sizes of guys going, I have no idea what's going on. And then they called 12 of us back into the room, and you suddenly went, oh, this is an elimination. And so they got rid of 4 of them, and they taught us a 2-on-1 fight sequence. We did that. We went into the room. They called 10 of us back. And then over the course of 2 hours, they put us through our paces to see if we could fight and we could do the moves. And it got down to 3 of us. And at the end of it, they said, thank you so much to the 3 of us, and sent us home. I think it was about 6 weeks to get the final verdict. And I'd just flown over. I was in Hong Kong shooting a film called Push with Chris Evans and Jaimin Hunzu.
There's a face I haven't seen in a long time.
And I just arrived in Hong Kong and got the call that I was going to do Bond. As a British kid, I would have paid a lot of money to be a walk-on extra in Bond.
Yeah.
But to suddenly get the news that I was going to be in Bond as a character and get to have a fight scene with 007 was incredible. And I trained my ass off for that. I knew it was a fight, a knife fight. They gave me the heads up. It was going to be a knife fight. So I worked with a friend of mine in LA when I got back from shooting in Hong Kong. And he used to be one of the Power Rangers. My buddy.
Whoa. What's his name?
He played the White Ranger.
Oh, bless.
Dan Southworth. And he played the White Ranger. And so I said to him, he's a stunt man, an amazing stunt actor. And I said, can you teach me knife fights? And we just spent 3 weeks just working on knife fight drills every single day. And he was so gracious in teaching me that and working with me. And then I went, and then I got to go over to Panama and have 2 weeks in Panama. Shooting the film.
But that only came about as well because James Bond was doing that kind of fighting in that little those 2 or 3 years was the only time they've really gone for that style. So, like you say, everything seems to come at you at the right time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because so much of I think the modern version of Bond is credited to Bourne, especially because Dan Bradley was the stunt coordinator on the Bourne films, and he created that look of that very vicious real life time of fighting. And then Dan Bradley did Casino Royale. So he brought that style into Casino Royale, and then Quantum of Solace they changed, got rid of Dan Bradley and brought in Gary Powell, but that style was already in there. This very real, vicious, you know, the old style of Bond where it was karate chops and very gentlemanly fisticuffs.
Yeah.
I loved it when it's just like in a real fight, when in those stakes, and I've never obviously been in those stakes, but you know, it's life or death. Someone's trying to kill you. I love the idea that, you know, Bond uses everything. You know, if there's a vase close, he's going to smash that over your head. He's going to throw a door into your face. He's going to use anything he can to get the advantage. And that's what they did with our fight. I mean, we had this insane fight where he's punching me in the throat with a shoe, and he's hitting me in the head with the laptop, and he smashes a vase over my head, and he's got a pair of scissors that he's opening up my femoral artery with, and it was just brutal.
And it really is.
Yeah, and it was just so much fun. Like I arrived there in Panama, and the stunt double that they gave me, fantastic guy who now doubles Chris Hemsworth on all the Thor movies, absolutely lovely guy. And they taught me the fight sequence, and they said the reason they needed somebody who could fight is because, by his own admission, Daniel didn't have a fight background, amazing physical actor, but didn't have a fight background. And they said, we do not have the time to teach two actors to do the fight sequence. So they taught it to me in an afternoon. And then it's the cushiest gig we ever had. We were in this lovely hotel, and for an hour a night, me and Daniel would meet up with the fight choreographer and Gary, the stunt coordinator, and we would practice the fight sequence. And then we'd sit and have a whiskey afterwards. And then he'd go and film all day, and I'd sit by the pool drinking Mai Tais. And then once he'd finished work, I'd come and do a little bit of stunt rehearsal with him. And that went on for 2 weeks. And then we filmed for 2 consecutive days, and it was done.
Such good planning, isn't there, with the producers and everything, to get all that done?
Yeah.
And because, you know, Casino Royale, they wanted to get Quantum out straight away. So there was not much... Yeah. The production time wasn't much, was it? So it's all
and they were very much hamstringed by the writers' strike as well. Because
I was going to ask you
on at the time. Yeah, so the writers' strike was on at the time that we were doing it, and even though the writers' strike, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, this was a British production. It had American money, and there's always solidarity between the unions, and so there wasn't any rewriting that was allowed on the script. They could cut, but they couldn't create anything new because it would be crossing the picket lines. And so when I arrived there was originally a lot more scenes with Mr. Slate. And
this is really interesting.
So they originally had a lot more scenes with some backstory on who he was, and we had a chat at the beginning, and they said it actually doesn't serve the story as much. So we're going to cut those scenes. Sorry, it's just going to be a fight sequence. We'll have a little bit of background where M is showing who Mr. Slate is, but it's just going to be the fight sequence. And I was just so happy to be there. I didn't know they could cut everything out and have me being a walk-on part. I would have been very happy just to walk through the scene. But you know, it was just one of those very surreal moments of just. I remember meeting Daniel for the first time. I just arrived in the hotel. I dumped my stuff, and I was about to be picked up to go and meet hair and makeup and go through everything. As I was walking through the lobby, this force of a man came barreling through with 2 security guards. And I say force of a man. You know when you see somebody who's walking like they're about to walk up to somebody to start a fight. There's energy to him. Like he barreled through like he had such purpose. And he walked past me and he paused and he went, Mr. Slate. And I said, yeah. He said, Daniel, lovely to meet you. We'll get to work later. I was like, okay, Daniel. And he walked off. And he was just so kind and gracious. And
good.
Because we got to work every single day for the 2 weeks. We were working every single day as I was helping him learn the fight sequence, and we were getting a chance to practice it. Because a fight sequence is just a dance. It's a choreographed dance, just with violent end, and it's all about how you dance together as partners. And it doesn't matter how good a fighter he is or how good a fighter I am. If we can't make that gel and work, it would fall flat. And a fight like that is so physical that, I mean, Gary Powell was saying at the beginning, he was like, this is the kind of fight that you're going to have bruises from. And he was saying it to me. He was like, you're going to have bruises from this. I need you to be okay with it. I was like, no, I'm absolutely okay with that. I'm very happy with that. And it was, it's just like Daniel's blocking shots with full power. And so I'm getting the bone of his forearm smashing into my forearm. And I had bruises all down my forearm. There's a bit where he punches me in the throat with a shoe, and actually he punched me in the throat. So there's a bit, you hear it, I go, and it's like I had bruises all across my epiglottis. And it was just one of those fights that you're like, all right, we're in this. And it's going to be good as a result. It's going to be visceral as a result. He was just in it with me. I mean, it was just like he was, in between takes, he was going, I think we can go a little harder on that one. Push me a little harder, hit me a little harder. I was like, great, let's see what comes out from this. As long, because we felt safe working with each other because we'd had 2 weeks of just practicing.
Yeah.
And then it's just we get to play.
I mean, if you are going to be in one scene, absolutely make your mark, and that's completely what you do, isn't it? In that one, you're there, and Bond fans know who Mr. Slate is. They know him because that scene is just so. It's so visceral, and it's interesting what you said about Quantum of Solace, because I would say that the fighting in Quantum of Solace is more akin to Bourne than Casino Royale, personally, and especially your scene, and you feel every punch, every kick, and then I'd say your actual death. I'm going to go as far as to say the most cringe-inducing, most wincing kind of death in the whole of Bond, if I'm being totally honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you. And it was one of the things we talked about a lot, because obviously they want them to be PG-13. They want them to be accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
The fight sequence was designed that he systematically drains me of blood. Wow. So he gets this set of scissors, and he cuts into my arm, the artery up in my arm, and then he stabs me in the neck and rips my neck open a little bit, and then at the very end, as I'm lying he throws me through the door, and then he stabs me in the femoral artery, and then just waits while I bleed out. And they talked about how much blood to show, how much blood not to show. Will people get the idea that my character is bleeding out? And we said, well, an interesting thing will be if I'm just laying there and I'm slowly, the life is just draining out of me while he just waits. He knows he's got me. And we talked about that moment a lot, but it was one of those moments you don't know how it's going to work until you do it. And we did it, and he's finally standing there over me, just with the scissors in my thigh, just waiting for, and the sound, I mean, the sound design on it's so good, because the sound of just that of just like metal going into flesh, it makes my skin crawl. But they did such a good job with it, and him just standing there waiting as you see this guy just fade before your eyes and suddenly just collapse. It was just brutal.
It's the absolute limit of a PG-13. It's testing. I suppose with the censors, they might have to edit some out or change it here and there. But the fact that you don't need to see the blood spurting out, seeing your face is worse in some ways.
Yeah.
And I do think
had a little pool of blood that was just coming underneath.
Yeah, there's a little.
You see just a little pool, just starting to bleed out underneath the body. So you get the idea of it. But it was just a pleasure to do, and to have 2 days in there, 2 days to shoot that fight sequence, and normally. It's a testament to Bond and the Broccolis and the way they set everything up, and Mark Forster, who was overseeing it all. Just going, no, we want to give the time that it's due for this fight sequence, because a fight sequence like that, you might normally have an afternoon just to smash through, pun intended. But they gave us plenty of time to really make sure they get all the coverage and everything. Yeah, it was one of those funny things of there's a bit where he walks into the room, you see the knife shoot out. And then my character bursts through the door, and we get into this fight. And then he throws me through the door. So that was the stunt double that gets thrown through the door. So both the door smashes with the stunt double, and then everything else was me and Daniel. With all the money they've got on Bond and all the time they've got, they didn't have replacement glass panels for the door that I smashed through. And so we smashed. The stunt double smashed through the door. And then we get up and we're doing the fight sequence, and there's a bit where he hits me and they wanted me to smash back into the door, and the props guys were coming up going, can you smash into the door really delicately? We don't have any spare glass panels, so if you knock them out, it won't match on the other cuts. And so you're trying to think, it's just like spinning 12 plates at once in your mind. You're trying to think of the choreograph, your positioning, making sure that you don't mess up and knock any more glass panels out. At the same point, Daniel's coming at you 110 miles an hour with a computer to smash into your face. And it was all yeah, everything kind of happens in a blur, and that's why we rehearse. I mean, when you rehearse in fight sequences, they always do it in percentages. And so you do this like 25% one where you're going in nice and slow and
Okay, yeah.
everything's slow. And then you ramp up. And they always talk about you never really want to go past 75, 80% in a fight sequence because that's fast enough for the camera to read it. And
Yes.
yet there's something that always happens. The moment you call action, 75% comes to 110 because it's
Yeah,
adrenaline and
yeah.
excitement and it becomes this thing. But because you've rehearsed it ad nauseum, so slow you're almost bored of the pace of it. Muscle memory is just there that you
Right.
know, oh, he's hitting here, I got a block here, he's hitting here. But there were some times where the blocks are real because he's winging something and you're like, oh, I gotta
Yeah.
get my hand up or it's I'm gonna get slapped. And that realism really comes across on screen. I remember seeing it for the first time. Another little funny little story is I flew back for the premiere
Oh,
of
brilliant.
Bond,
Amazing.
which was amazing. So I was in LA and they said, oh, the premiere's here. We got tickets for you and your partner. And so I flew back for it. And I was staying in my old house. I used to own a house in Surrey Keys. So I was staying in my house and I was in the process of selling it. So I had nobody in there. The production company for Bond sent a courier with the tickets. And it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and we've got to be there in Leicester Square at 5 o'clock. And he said, we're sending the courier now. And they sent the courier an hour later. The tickets hadn't shown up. Another hour, the tickets hadn't shown up.
Ooh.
So I called the production company and they said, oh, I don't know where the courier is. They must have got lost. We're calling the courier company now. The courier company didn't know where the courier was and he'd disabled the tracking on his bike.
Whoa.
And so there was no knowledge of it. And I was like, can you just send me another ticket? And they said, no, we've only printed exactly the number because it's a royal performance. So they need to know exactly the allocation. And they think now, belatedly, that he sold them on or somebody else has got the tickets and went to the thing. So anyway, it got to they said, just wait until the final moment because maybe he'll show up. And he finally showed up. They were worried that he was stealing or whatever. He finally showed up. We got the tickets. I'm already in my tuxedo. My partner's already in her dress. We had a car waiting for us. He showed up, and then our driver was like a Formula One driver, just breaking laws to try to get all the way to Leicester Square. And I get a call from the lead publicist just saying, we just got word that the princes are arriving early. And the moment the princes step foot into Leicester Square gets locked down. So if you're not in Leicester Square by the time the princes arrive, you won't get into the premiere.
Oh my!
So we're hurtling through the streets, me in my tuxedo, trying to get to the Bond premiere. So excited to experience a Bond premiere. Probably the only chance I'll ever get in my life to be at a Bond premiere. Definitely one that I'll be in. And I keep getting this call, the princes are arriving, the prince's car is pulling up. And so we were about 150 meters from Leicester Square and we're stuck in a traffic jam. I said, let's get out and run. So we got out and we're hurtling through the streets, me in my tuxedo, like a Bond moment, sprinting through the streets. And we got to the gates. And as we got to the gates, I'm on the phone to the publicist and she said, I'm afraid the princes have arrived. It's all shut off. And we weren't allowed in. There was armed police locking off the area and we couldn't. I was like, I'm literally at the gates. Can you let me in? And she even handed the phone to Daniel, who was there. And Daniel said, let me have a word with somebody. And Daniel couldn't get them to open the gates. And so I ended up spending the premiere at the Shakespeare's Head pub round the corner from Leicester Square. And everyone thought that I was just a Bond fan because I'm in a tuxedo having a pint of Guinness with my family who'd shown up to be there to watch as I walk in the red carpet. And we're all sitting in the pub going, it's not exactly the Bond premiere experience I was hoping for.
What a
and then
story,
I went to the after party afterwards, and everyone's buzzing from the film, and I hadn't seen it. I had no idea what went on.
Oh right, of course. Goodness.
So I was like, did the fight make the cut? Yeah, the fight made the cut. The fight's in there.
Fair play to Daniel, though. That's great.
I know he did his he did his best to try to get it in, but I think Prince's trump Bond.
They
when
do.
It comes to power. Yeah.
It's all British royalty, but yeah.
I know. Yeah.
So when was the first time you saw it?
First time I saw it was actually I went back to LA after that and just went to the cinema and saw it when it was on general release.
Oh, how good was that though? To think I'm in a Bond film and just other people.
It was amazing to go. It was one of those little bizarre experiences of sitting in the cinema with a couple of friends. Me and a couple of friends went to watch it, and my ex. And we're watching the film, and I've no idea what part of it or how much of it is going to
Yeah.
be, and you never know. And I've done films before where I didn't even make the cut, and you're there watching the film and going, I should be, nope, he didn't
No.
make it. And it comes to the bit and they show Edmund Slate, and I was like, okay, great, he's in here. And then the fight happened, and it was an amazing fight, and you felt the energy in the cinema. Everyone
Yeah.
watched that fight, and there was this guy like, yeah, everyone was on the edge of their seats as it happened. And you don't really get a respite in it because the moment the fight's over, he then assumes Edmund's identity, leaves,
Yeah.
takes a package, and he's instantly into the whole stuff. But you could feel the buzz of the energy. And then as we walked out, I got the most second glances I've ever got in my
Yes.
life, because you walked out from the cinema and it was a packed, 400 seater cinema, and you're walking out and everyone's like, oh, I film with.
Hey up.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like the guy that got stabbed in the leg.
Yeah. Well, I think
So
part of
very bizarre.
part of the character, you need to look a bit like Bond, don't you? Because you
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
got to
because he
stand
assumes
in
the
for
identity.
him. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Can you remember any of this like backstory of Edmund Slate that was scrapped? Can you remember any of it?
Yeah.
It was more. It was. I mean, no, I can't remember. I can't remember the backstory that they put, because they changed the backstory when it came to M kind of explaining who it was. They did it with M explaining as opposed to they were going to do it with scenes, and it was just a couple of scenes of him. One was him buying something illicit, and there were a couple of other scenes. I remember reading them once or twice, and then they were cut, so I didn't think about them again. But they kind of, I mean, it was obviously the right decision, because M pulls up on the holodeck board, whatever she does. This is Edmund Slate, and this is who he is, and this is what he's done, and she got to just cut to the nut of who he was, and now we can just watch him have a scrap and die.
These bills from the same series as Mitchell's were just scanned at a bank in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, deposited in the account of a Mr. Slate.
Impress me.
We have a Mr. Edmund Slate returning to Port-au-Prince from Heathrow this morning. His entry documents have him staying at the Hotel des Salines. He's in room 325.
Dear me.
But he was initially called Mr. Black, when I auditioned for him, he was Mr. Black.
Whoa!
And then they added a little white in there. They made him Mr. Slate. And then they added an Edmund in there, which is the least scary name you can possibly have.
Yeah, Edmund Blackadder. Yeah,
Edmund Blackadder.
Oh right, because
that'd been a whole different fight sequence.
Yeah,
amazing. I would have loved to have watched that.
You and Rowan Atkinson, yeah, because of course Mr. White was the head of Quantum, and then they've got Mr. Green as the main baddie. I didn't realize. So I'm assuming like Slate is sort of not a code name maybe, but a pseudonym perhaps for him.
Yeah, I'm imagining they just went with the color thing there.
Yeah. Goodness me. Yeah. How much involvement did Mark Forster have? Just because you didn't mention him.
He didn't have as much in that, and again, it's a sign of a great director. I mean, like, he's a phenomenal director, but when you've got people like Gary Powell and the fights team that we had there, they're the ones setting the camera, because they know you put the camera here and it's going to make it sell. Put the camera here and it won't sell. And so he was leaning very much on them. He had a visual idea of what he wanted the flavor of the fight to be, and so he was there overseeing. But a lot of the direction of it was left to the second unit team of Gary Powell and the fight choreographers and everybody that was involved. And so he oversaw and was very much like, this is great, it looks great, maybe a little more or whatever. He gave little notes, but it was mainly the stunt team that drove that moment.
Did you meet any of the other Bond actors in Panama?
I got to meet, I'm blanking on her name, the lead girl in it.
The Kuryalenko.
Yeah. So, got to hang out with her a little bit, because we were on the same hotel. So got to hang out with her a little bit. The guy that was Mr. Green had just left before, and he was coming back afterwards because they were spending all the time on the sequences with us. I mean, it's just hanging around by the pool playing ping pong all day, and then fighting 007 in the evenings, and then having a whiskey with him. And it was after the first day of filming, it was one of those surreal moments. This is pre-iPhones, and I wish I had a photo. I only have two photographs actually from that thing. And I wish I had a photograph of this, because it was after the first day of filming, and we'd just done this huge fight sequence, and we were sat with me, Daniel, and several of the crew, and Gary Powell and a few people, and I had bruises all up my forearm from where he'd been hitting me, and I had a slight red mark where it slapped me around the head with a shoe. And so I'm red here and bruised here, and we're both sitting having whiskeys, just going, fuck, that was intense. Same again tomorrow. Yeah, okay. And it was just one of those moments that I'd love. It's a little picture in my mind. But the two photos that I've got, the second day of filming, the camera crew were moving from another location, and they were 45 minutes late. And so there was me, the stunt crew, and Daniel, and our doubles. And we're just on the set, and we walked through and practiced and walked through and got to the point where we were like, oh, we know it. And so I finally said to Daniel, I said, do you mind if I get a picture? And he went, yeah, go on then. I said, thanks, mate. I handed him the camera and stood with the stunt team. And so he took the picture of me with the stunt team, and that got a chuckle out of him. And then I said, look, can I get one with you as well? And then I got one with him.
Oh, that's so
they're
good.
They're the only two photos I had, but he was a good guy. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. The other people we've interviewed on the Daniel Craig films have all said what a generous actor he is, and because a lot's on his shoulders, isn't it? Especially when it's only his second film.
Yeah, and that film had so much riding on it because nobody, I mean, not nobody, a lot of people were very anti, James Bond, the idea of this guy coming in, and it was a very different type of Bond, and people were kind of against it, and so there was a lot of people watching Casino Royale, and I think Casino Royale, for my money, is the best Bond film out of all of them. I absolutely love it, and what they did with the stunts in that, and the way they introduced his character, and that big fight scene where he's on the chase sequence, where he's bursting through the walls.
Oh yeah,
and and it's echoed perfectly by M just saying you're a blunt instrument of a dinosaur age, and it was just, they reinvented it so perfectly that the pressure was really on, can you do it again, or was that a fluke? And so there was a lot more pressure on Quantum than I think that there was on Casino, because everyone was waiting to see if they could pull it off. And they to their credit, they did something different again. They'd never done a continuation of a story in the Bond franchise. They would always been brand new sections that you can watch out of sequence in any way you want. And this was direct continuity from it. Yeah. And so I really applaud the way they took the direction of it.
It's getting a lot of love, like reappraisal. Sort of, how many years on are we now? 18 years on, something like that.
18.
Yeah. So it's, like every Bond film has its time. Like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, people didn't seem to cotton on to the fact that it was a masterpiece until about 30 years later. But Quantum is one of those ones where everyone who revisits it now is like, oh wow, I forgot about that scene. Or, oh yeah, wasn't that a great bit? And I think fair play to you, Neil. You're a big part of that. Because that is the style of that film. It's that quick editing. It's the the amount of choreography you do. It's to make a fight look more realistic. You have to practice it even more, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. You just got to run it and run it and run it and run it, and then run it some more and run it some more, so that you're not thinking about it when you're in it. You're just reacting.
Yeah, there's so many other things you've done that I'd love to talk about. Westworld, Anthony Hopkins. Colin Farrell, you've mentioned. Woody Allen. Goodness me, you've had an amazing
career. It's been good.
Yeah,
it's been very
good.
And it
continues.
Lucky. Yeah, it's carrying on. I just did a film with John Travolta that's coming out later this year, which was great, and then Robert Carlyle, which was a joy to work with him.
Another Bond,
a big hero of mine. So that was wonderful. So yeah, it's been nice. I feel very lucky.
Yeah, well, we wish you well, Neil, and all the best with your next project.
It's been a pleasure chatting to you both, and
we really appreciate it.
We'll chat Dream Team more next time. All right,
Cheers,
my pleasure,
Neil, really
guys. Thanks for asking me to do it. Lovely meeting.